Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to season 3, episode 21 of the Peace Podcast. Just give me flexibility, whatever that looks like. Top 10 lessons that helped us to move throughout this last year together. And I have a special guest for this episode, and I can't wait for you guys to tune in and hear about our top 10 lessons. Hello, everyone. So I told you there was going to be a special guest, and here he is. This is Jerry, also known as my guest on the Peace Podcast 2 years ago in June. So if you want to hear that episode, it was about grief. Recorded that a couple of years ago. So you can scroll back to that one. But back then, we were not in the same phase as we are now. So back then, we were just recording an episode. And today, we are in a relationship. So this is my man on the episode today, y'all. And something to just side note is that we don't normally like come on camera together because there were a lot of just logistics with that. So this is our first time appearing on a podcast / anything that is public as a couple after that recording when we weren't a couple. So here we are. And here he is.
Hey.
So what we decided to do, our birthdays are 2 days apart. He's older. He was 43 for 2 days. And then I turned 43. When you listen to this, if you listen to it when it drops, my birthday would have been yesterday. But his birthday is on May 23rd and mine is on May 25th. Same year, 2 days apart. And so because our birthdays are 2 days apart, and also if you know me, you know that like everybody in my family has birthdays in the same week. So he just filled in the gap for us because we only had one day where there wasn't a birthday. And so here he came along. And so we decided that it would be cool to record an episode together about the things that we have learned in this past year, because we were in the same year of life. Him 2 days ahead of me, but in the same year of life. I have to keep pointing out that he's older.
Yeah, I see that. I see that.
He is older.
It's 2 days. 2 days.
But he's still older.
Oh my.
So anywho, thought that we should record an episode and thought we would make it fun. So we wrote down the top 5 lessons that we learned this year. Some of them are relational. Some of them are just life lessons. And we're going to switch, and he's going to have mine, I'm going to have his. This will be our first time seeing what the other person wrote. And then we're just going to ask questions and talk about his top 5 lessons from this year and my top 5 lessons from this year. You ready?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
This might be mind-blowing for you.
So. That's fine.
Probably for me as well.
That's
all right,
fine.
So here we go.
All right. Well, so who goes first?
You know, I talked enough in the first 2 minutes, so I'll let you ask the first question.
So here we go. Number 1, you put everything is figureoutable, and so why'd you choose that?
Because I used to think everything was fixable, but everything's not fixable because you can't. Some things are just broken, whatever that thing is. So there's finality in things like death or life-threatening injury, or maybe someone leaves and they're not coming back. And so those things aren't fixable per se. I also think that my shift in perspective came from conversations that we've had where like, I tried to fix this thing for like a decade and it didn't fix. So I don't think everything's fixable, but I think everything is figureoutable. And I did not land on that until this past year. Well, we've had a lot of just stuff that has happened.
Yeah, very much so.
Whether it's life situations that we want to change, or it's financial situations, things that are just hard.
Yeah.
in
parenting
general.
situation.
Parenting,
Yeah,
yeah, like
it's
situations with family. There's
yeah,
just so much. And our conversations don't fix whatever the thing is, it still
right,
exists. But I think that our conversations have helped us to figure out under what is under our control, what is not under our control,
right,
what can we do something about, what is our part in being obedient to God, what is our part in just praying, because we know that. And I take that just back, because I that's like a pet peeve of mine when people say just pray, because praying is the thing. It's a
yes,
very impactful thing.
yes,
But what part of it are we praying about and
yes,
sitting back and waiting? So all of it's figure outable.
mm-hmm,
It's not fixable always.
yes.
So we're going to figure out how to persevere through the thing, but we might not be
And be
able to
able to fix
fix
it.
the thing
Yes.
that caused that in the first place.
Okay.
So
I do see why you would pick that.
yeah,
And you've had a couple of situations this year for that line. Absolutely being with you, I definitely know. Okay, that's that's one of the things you've personally gone through. So I see why you would pick that.
yeah. So because they probably want to know now, because you've been through some things, and people want to know the things. So what's an example? You don't have to give like a nitty gritty example,
Right.
but what's an example of a time where you think that I learned that lesson, or
Mm.
was like leaning on that lesson?
Well, I don't want to go into like a short details of, or the long and short of this is even just recently my baby had put into um she applied for a position at a school to try to pick up a position at a school that's closer to
Make that
her.
commute shorter,
Yeah,
y'all, because whoo,
man,
let me
yeah, because
just
her
tell
commute
you.
is very, very long. And after the interviews, you know, unfortunately, she didn't get the position. I'm saying unfortunately because it didn't fix the commute situation, but having that conversation with her after, I could tell her she was really broken up about it. But then she's like, it wasn't meant for me. We just got to figure out what God's purpose for keeping me there is. And so that's one of those, the interview and the process didn't fix the commute. So now we got to figure out what's next. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and
So,
that's probably the most recent example that let me know that I like learned this lesson,
right.
is probably that one.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
wasn't like the refining of this lesson, but for sure the most recent one that was like, okay, this is not one of those times where I'm going
Right.
to be able to fix this,
Yeah.
snap my fingers and it's done, but definitely a figure outable moment. Okay, so you say it's okay to receive without expectation.
Hmm.
What is your, I guess, deeper experience with that one?
Well, a lot of the times, mm, being with you, I've realized like even so, this is my second birthday with you,
I love
and
birthdays, y'all.
yes, and
Love
like
them.
even birthdays, Christmas, little side note gifts here and there, and you're like, oh, I got this for you, or I did this, and I had always been like, okay, so what do you want in return? Like, what are you looking
Mm,
for here? And my mind and my mindset had always been that person gave me something, they must expect something from me. So now I have to try to figure out what they want.
mm,
And to be honest, it's like the first time I've ever actually been in a relationship where I receive something and I don't feel obligated to say, well, now I have to do something for her in return
mm.
because you're doing it because you think I should just have it. you know. We got together and she's like, "You have a lot of shoes. This is absolutely insane." But then she buys me shoes all the time because she knows I love shoes, and she does it not because it is just the fact that she's doing it because she says, "Oh, he would love that. I'm gonna get that," for him, and not expect to be like, "Well, where are my shoes? where's my gift in return? Like hoping to receive something. She just does that because she sees something that she knows I would love, and she does that just to do it, you know. And I hadn't really known that until I met her, so that's why I chose that.
And you said two things there. So the first one is, this is just like an extra bonus for y'all. When you buy somebody gifts, there's a difference between buying somebody a gift that you want them to have. So it's like, oh, there's this cool new piece of tech and I want her to have it.
Yes.
Very cool. Like these microphones that we're wearing are one of those gifts. There's this very cool piece of tech and I want her to have it. But there's also an underlying reason that he bought the tech. I want her podcast to sound really good, and I know that's important to her, so here's the gift. So, though I know he has tons of shoes, I also know that he likes shoes. So I'm not going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to get him this other thing that I really like and I really think he should have.
Yeah.
But instead, I'm going to be like,
Yes.
what's the thing that he likes?
Yeah.
Another example of this is he's very people-y. And I love y'all, but also like, I also like quiet, and I'm like an ambivert. Some days I can be like, let's talk to all the people. And then other days I'm like, and so too many people are talking. He never has the too many people are talking days. He will talk to a random stranger in the parking lot at Walmart and then see him again inside the Walmart and continue their conversation. And he's never met them before. I create connections, but also sometimes I just want to go in the Walmart, grab the thing I'm getting, and then come back out. And I don't even go into Walmart. Why don't I go into Walmart?
Because they have the app that orders you stuff and they can bring it to you outside.
Super easy. And if I go into the Walmart, what's going to happen?
People are going to talk.
Somebody I know is going to come up to me.
Yes.
It's just going to, like, and I love people. I do. But I also don't always want to
Yes.
talk to people. So sometimes that creates a situation.
Oh,
But anyways, so for his birthday, I'm like, he loves people. Let's take him to a place where there are lots of people, and then
Yes.
also invite all of his people to the place so we can all hang out together and talk.
which was very special, by the way, because I did not catch on to that until the very day of.
It was
took
the
2
cupcakes.
weeks of hiding. This was absolutely craziness. My friends hid this from me too, which was amazing because they tell me everything.
Shout out to y'all.
Yeah, none of
Great
them were
secret
even like,
keepers.
hey, you have this coming, act surprised. They didn't tell me at all, which is amazing. I really appreciate y'all for doing that one.
So he knew that I would not want that type of birthday because I talk to people all day long, every day. And so my birthday's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
His birthday is people-y because we know that that's what the other person likes. So when you're doing something for somebody, it's not about shining the spotlight on you. It's about making sure that it's something that they would want to experience.
Absolutely.
And the secondary thing is that when you were talking about, the receiving and without expectation thing, it's really just understanding that life and love are not transactional, right? So sometimes you're going to help the homeless person on the side of the street and give
Yes.
them $10 with
I don't
no
expect them,
expectation,
yes,
that's ever going to
absolutely.
come back to you.
Yes.
And then sometimes God sees what you did and he gives you a blessing based on that, but you're not doing it for the blessing. You're
Right.
just doing it because you want that person to be
Right.
seen and to see God and to see God's grace
Right.
and mercy in regular everyday life.
Absolutely.
And I think that when you're in a relationship, like that's how and I understand that there are things that have happened in your past that have created that sense of transaction in relationship. But I love that for you, that you've learned and experienced within this year that just because I give you something doesn't mean I'm expecting something from
Yes.
you. And just because you gave me something, now I don't feel the need to do something back in return. Although I will say that we are very cheerful givers. Like, the people who can't hold on to the gift until the actual day of the thing because they want to
Yep.
give you the gift so bad. We are both those people. So it makes it a lot, because we don't just do it with gifts. We do it in deed and in texts and in words of affirmation and in all the things.
Yep.
So we don't really have that transactional situation in our relationship. But we also notice it because we've experienced it in other relationships, which makes it really special for us because it doesn't feel like you have to get something to give something or
Yep.
vice versa. It's just we kind of like try to
Absolutely.
outlove one another, which makes it more fun. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm seeing this, and I think on mine I have something.
I saw it. I saw it.
That is so crazy.
Well, we knew that was
This
going to
is
happen.
yeah.
Though.
This is why it's crazy. So on mine I put learning to plan things out, right? Because I am a very spontaneous kind of guy. I'm like, it's Friday, we're free. Our sons aren't here, our daughters aren't here. Everybody's hanging out. Pack stuff. Let's go to DC. When we get there, we'll get a place to stay. And then guess what? Let's restaurant hop. I'm that guy.
Okay.
She's like, well,
no,
we're not doing that.
I'm like,
can you please
go
plan
with the
place?
flow, but
Yes.
what time's the flow starting,
Yes.
and what time do we need to be ready?
Yes, exactly. Did you make a reservation at the restaurant that you think we should be eating? So then it goes from spontaneous to the plan is put out. This is what we're doing, and then she would just say, take a deep sigh and like, all right, I'm packing. We're leaving. That's.
So I love that for us because you literally wrote planning things out ahead of time.
Yes,
that's something you learned. And then
she put spontaneity can be fun
with
the little
planning.
Absolutely
so on brand
crazy.
For us because I literally said to him before we did this, I was like, we're going to do it, but know that it's probably not going to be 10 lessons because there's going to be overlap at least once.
That is funny.
But to your point and to your example, we did that before. And so he was like, we're going to go to DC. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, you just need to pack your bag. Everything is ready. And I'm like, okay, but what's ready? And he's like, the car. And I'm like, okay, but where are we staying? And he's like, I don't know. We'll find out when we get there. I'm like, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm not going somewhere if I don't know where we're going to sleep.
Absolutely.
And so he was like, all right. But we could just go. There's going to be a hotel. I'm like, yeah, but there's not going to be a hotel where we want to stay. So like, why would we do it that way? So anyway, to make a long story short, that trip taught us that you can do both.
Yeah, for sure.
But that you're not going to get to eat the food you want to eat unless you make a reservation.
Yeah, yes.
Because
so we got there.
We did not, and there wasn't a place for us to sit.
Yeah.
So we have what's the word? Compromised.
Yes.
We have landed on, yes, we can take a trip spontaneously with a place to stay, and if we have a specific place to eat, make reservations.
Yes.
So it can kind of be planned, but
yeah.
not. Okay, so
yes.
And how do you think that like me learning that spontaneity is good sometimes as long as there's a semblance of a plan, but you also learning that planning things out ahead of time has its benefit. How do you think that has I guess helped us or like been an area of positive growth?
I see. So I haven't always been a planner. The only thing that I try to plan out is where my finances are going. I know that. And what my kids are doing. I do know that. And then
what we're going to wear to church on Sunday so we match.
Don't miss I do know that too. Yes, I will check on Friday,
don't know where we're going to stay on the trip,
and
but you know we're going to match on Sunday morning, y'all.
But yeah, so I know those. But I think being spontaneous sometimes it's fun because you can't just surprising someone and saying, let's go to the Carolinas for like 4 days because you have those 4 days. It's like, it's fun to me. I'm like, yeah, let's stop here. Let's eat a little bit. Let's stop here. Let's check out this and then continue to our destination. I like doing those things. But now that I'm with you, having to plan it actually feels slightly more freeing because I'm not driving towards the Carolinas or to DC, and I'm like, wait a minute, what if there isn't a hotel? Then what do we do? Do we just come back? So it's like you're driving, then you came back with your clothes. But in DC, there's
Yeah, it's a little
hundreds of
easier there.
hotels. It's nice, but it's like normally where we want to stay. If you didn't book it ahead, there's a possibility that there won't be a place to stay because of it's just the
Yeah.
area that we do
Especially
like
if
to
there's
stay.
an event or something there.
Right.
But I think the interesting thing, and we actually talked about this, I think yesterday or the day before, but the interesting thing that we learned, which is really the underlying part of this, is that you have a need for excitement
Mm-hmm.
and some sort of like endorphin and adrenaline
Yeah.
type situation. And I have a need for safety
Yes.
and certainty.
Right.
So we can pick up on a Friday and say, we're going to this place, but on the way there, make sure that we have a hotel. And if we want to make a
everything,
reservation,
yes.
right? So it's still honoring both things,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, respecting the other person's need for the thing that they have. So finding
Right.
some sort of commonality there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think that's funny that we had the same one.
Yeah, that one was crazy. Same way too. Same
Right?
exact
Was it the
wording.
same number?
Yeah.
No, mine was
No,
4, yours was 2. Or no,
yours
yours
is
was 4,
2.
mine was 2.
Yeah.
All right. So I can't read this last word. Speaking on what you're going through without fear. It says
Yes.
fear. So tell me how that has shown itself in the past year.
Well, going through this my previous relationship and then going through the past, I would say even not even year. It started like the first week and a half of us dating, having to express myself to you. And I remember there was a situation where um, I was going through something with her, and we had to have a conversation. So anyway, I call her, and I'm in fear, like, okay, this is in my mind. I'm like, I'm gonna tell this woman this, and she's gonna go off. So I have already emotionally prepped myself to hear what she's gonna say. So after I tell her everything, or she asks me a couple of questions, I give her the answers, and she's like, "All right, so how's your day going?" And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, that's it?" Like
Those are his
that,
exact words,
yeah.
actually.
So you know what I mean? I'm like, that's this. The conversation is over, and she was like, "Yeah, what did you expect?" And immediately I broke down crying because as a man, like I've had to be on my guard that if I said something, now I'm waiting for like the repercussions of what I've said. So once she did that, it actually from that day on gave me I wouldn't say opportunity, but the strength to come to you and be like, I'm going through this. What do you think? Or this has happened. And it made me freely be able to share with you because I know you're not going to go off. You're going to rationalize what I'm telling you. And you're going to, even if it did upset you, you're going to talk to me like I'm a person. You're going to give me the answer. Even if it did upset you, you're going to give me an answer, or you're going to explain why that thing upset you to me instead of yelling at me.
Yeah,
So,
and I would say it probably built your confidence to just be vulnerable, which is another thing on your list.
right.
But it was just like I don't have to worry about what's going to happen as a result of this. I can just share this with her. And I think, too, that, and you can probably answer this better than me, but do you feel like it built your ability to not feel like you needed to be fully healed or have it all figured out when you brought it to me, but that we were going to kind of work it out together?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the key things. That's why, like, even there are things that we've taken on as tasks together in this past year and a half that I would never venture to do in my previous relationships because I I have grown to like fully trust. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. I fully trust that if I'm bringing it to you, even if it did upset you, you're going to give me a smart, sensible, rational answer, and you're going to act on it rationally. And like even like trying to build a business, or trying to venture out into something that I've been always wanting to do, it gave me more confidence in that, because when I bring it to you, you're going to say, okay, no, that one probably doesn't seem like something, but okay, let's pursue that. That's great. And then you always offer ideas. And then I was wanting to start a hoodie business, which, by the way, I'm wearing one of the hoodies that we created, and she made this. But whenever we met her, I've been sitting on this idea for 5-6 years, and she's like, "No, we're not doing that. What did you want to make?" And so, after a week, all of a sudden, designs start popping up in my email. I made this and I made that, and then we're gonna get this machine, and you're gonna do this. And okay, now that you got the machine and you got the designs, you got to get the hoodies, and so it's like always encouraging, and I'd never really gotten that, and so I don't know, just speaking with her about things that I'm feeling always gives me the encouragement to be like, all right, this, I'm putting a stop to this, because she's backing me up, she supports me, and her answer is always um, knowledgeable. She thinks through everything she says to me, and sometimes she say, remember you used to say, let me get back to you on that. Let me think on this for a little bit, and then and then we'll talk about it, and then she will give me an answer. And I'm like, all right, that's okay, that's smart. I'm not gonna do this, but I'll take this on. So having a partner that's actually gonna encourage you, one, um, not belittle you when you slip up or say the wrong thing or make a mistake, two, um, and three, just be there whenever you're going through a tough time, um, is one of the things that I really love about. And I don't know if I put that on there, but that's one of the reasons why I feel so encouraged to venture out and do other things. Like I'm like, I can come up with this business. I think this will work, because I know if I do it and it failed, she's gonna say, you tried, it failed. What else? What else? Is, and she's always gonna encourage me. So
So that's the thing I would say that I notice the most in that vein when it comes to you is that previously, because you were afraid of the reaction,
mhm,
you wouldn't necessarily even bring the idea into conversation
right,
because the reaction was going to be something that you don't want to deal with.
right,
So I would say that probably our conversations and just the way that we have discussed ideas or things that weren't necessarily going the way that we wanted them to in relationally, I think that the way that we've discussed those things is what allows you to be able to take what seems like a risk even though it isn't really,
right.
because if you fail, it's not,
The end of the world.
yeah, in other spaces it might have
Every,
been like
right.
everything's done, it's all
Yes.
over, right? Where and in this
Absolutely.
space, because even in the conversation that you alluded to earlier, I mean, I literally just said in that conversation, okay, so this happened. And this is like a script that I used, shout out Gottman Institute, because that's where it came from. But it was really like, okay, this happened. This is the way that it made me feel. In the future, I would prefer that it happened this way. And then, like, are you capable of doing that? Because I knew me and I'm like, I'm not willing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know you, and I know, I didn't know you like I do now, but
Mm-hmm.
even still, and I knew that you were going to tell me what you were capable of doing or not capable of doing. And then there's a choice. And I think
Right.
sometimes we forget that in life, that instead of trying to shape shift or force someone else to be
Right.
something different, you have a choice. So you could have said, I can't really tell you whether or not that's going to happen again, or
Right.
I can't control if that happens again in the future, or I'm not ready to say no to the request on this other end, so this could very well happen again. And then I would have had a choice to make.
Yeah.
And I would have been like, well, I'm not willing to
To do that.
continue to, like, that hurt my feelings, and I'm not willing to. And so then there's a choice to be made there. And then when you're talking about like the businesses and those type of things, like in my head, it's a dream, but it's also just a hoodie.
Yes.
So just because the hoodie fails, the dream doesn't fail. It's
Yes.
just a hoodie.
Yeah.
So if that hoodie flops, then we just make a
Try
new
it.
one.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's like, there's this I think gloom and doom that maybe you had before
Mm-hmm.
that slowly shed itself by you realizing that everything is figure outable and
Right.
it's not the end of the world and it's not going to be like this destruction if that one thing doesn't go the way that you thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's
So,
another one on yours?
yours, you have one here that says, God's plan may be painful, but He's still good. Yeah, and that one, that I don't know if you guys ever, there's so many things that have happened with us that this is, I think this should have been first.
You know, I put
Because,
it last
yeah.
because I said, well, I don't want to start with that one and then the rest of them be trash.
Yeah.
If I start with that, it's going to be like,
Yeah.
well, this one doesn't even
Yeah.
compare to that one. So that
That
I
one
actually
should have
thought of
been
that. These
first.
two were first, and I put them at the bottom,
Yeah.
and then put the other ones
That
ahead of
should have
them.
been because I mean we've experienced death, loss of family members, loss of friends, like loss of jobs and back into jobs, and then loss of like shifting positions from having to be able to have like a more comfortable schedule in work to go into a permanent position somewhere that's further. I mean, it's just sometimes
And
you're
those
just
are
like,
just
God,
like,
what is happening
yeah,
here?
those are
What
just
is
like the
going
bare
on?
minimum ones. But like, if you guys have ever been, if you've ever been through anything that goes through the court system, like that process is
Yes,
just super
absolutely,
painful.
absolutely
There's
painful.
no certainty. It's just something else. So we've had, our fair share of being in and out of the court. When you have kids and you have custody and you have all the things, like you go back and forth. We've had, like he said, death. We've had just circumstantial things in our
Mm-hmm.
lives that are happening. I've told you guys this before, but financially with my youngest, that's like I'm just doing it by myself, and so the commute has to happen in order for me
Yes.
to be able to make that happen. And so
Yeah.
there's just all these things, and if you are running things through a scale of fairness, we would probably sit on the unfair end often. But we don't run things through that scale
Mm-hmm.
because we don't believe that fair exists. We just believe that there's a just God. And when there's a just God, it doesn't mean that you get the same thing as your neighbor. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you are gifted with the same thing as your neighbor. It means that your life is a culmination of all of the things that are going to refine you to get to your next,
Mm-hmm.
the next thing that he has planned for you.
Yes.
And ironically enough, the court battle that he went through, I went through the exact same one the year before. So I had all of this wisdom and knowledge to share with him. And we believe that our story and our testimony doesn't
Mm-hmm.
stop with us. So one day, God forbid, but one day somebody that we know is going to
Might be
need
going
the
through it.
wisdom that he has, that he's going to be able to share with them. And it just continues to kind of boomerang back and forth.
Yeah.
And so it's tough when you think about the pain that you experience. Like you guys know that one of my best friends passed away last week. Um, Really rough to not get that text message from her today. Not gonna lie, there are tons of people wishing me happy birthday, and her mom even got on social media and was like, I know she's wishing you a happy birthday from heaven. And though I know that is true, still doesn't feel the same to not get that text message
Mm-hmm.
in your phone from that person.
Yeah.
And if you roll back
Definitely
to
feels.
the former video that or the former podcast that Jerry and I recorded together 2 years ago, if you listen to that one or if you haven't, I encourage you to go back. When his daughter passed away, that was like a heavy burden, and he still
Mm-hmm.
deals with that pain because it doesn't just go away. And so when we think about the sovereignty and how our God is omniscient, it's really hard to be like, how can a good God let something so bad happen until
Mm-hmm.
you start to think about the what ifs. Well, what
Yeah.
if God was doing this? Or what if this great thing that he was, he wanted me to experience was attached to this horrible thing that I experienced? And so I think this year, out of all of the years, has just taught me that a painful plan doesn't equate to a plan that doesn't have purpose.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I look at that every single day and just, I was telling Jerry the other day, it's like you could wake up every morning and think about the pain that you've experienced, and you could feel a certain sense of sadness or grief or whatever it is. And we're still going to feel those because we're human. But you could also wake up every morning and say, well, I'm still here. So what's my assignment today?
Yeah.
And
What's my purpose for today?
we've kind of been encouraging each other to do just that. Like sometimes we get shameful, sometimes we get down on ourselves, sometimes we just are sad. And we've just said, well, but we're here. We woke up this morning, so there's an assignment for us. And it's our job to figure out what that is for the day. And so God is good all the time, but that plan doesn't feel good all the time. And so we have to, if we believe he's good, then we have to know that even a painful plan, even pain inside of the plan, still has a purpose because he's always good.
Or like you're just related to human sense wise. You're on the highway, all of a sudden, boom, there's a detour. Now you take the detour and probably take you maybe 5 miles off course. But eventually that detour will bring you back to either the highway or link you up with another road that would take you to your destination. And you got there, but you didn't go the straight way. It veers you off every now and then it'll put you somewhere else and then somewhere else, and then eventually bring you back to the road, or it will lead you somewhere else that will get you there. And I feel like that's what happens with us. Sometimes we have like this stiff, strict plan. This is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. And then you get somewhere and God's like, but wait, there's more. This is where you plan to, but I'm going to move you here. And he's playing chess. And so you're like, well, why am I going through this? And then you're all 5 years later. And then you're like, you come back to where maybe you landed or where you were trying to go, where your destination was. And you're like, hold on, this is what I was trying to get to, but I had to go through all this. And then you kind of track back and you're like, wow, that's why I had to experience this. And then I had to meet this person who then led me to this person. You think you're wasting time, but all those people are pieces that God's putting in your life. Yes. And then eventually you get there. When you get there, you're better prepared to handle the situation.
Which is what happened with us, because we talk about this all the time. And
yes,
one day we'll bore you with the intricate details of our story. But for now, I'll just say that the people we knew were so interwoven, and the time frames that we were experiencing things or involved in things were so interwoven, but we never ran into each other. We never actually talked to each other. We were just friends on social media because we had common friends. And the way that our paths were created, we learned such specific lessons that there is no other way for us to see this but that God knew what he was doing.
Yes, absolutely.
For us to be single at the same time, for us to have experienced relationships that were pretty much the exact same thing.
Yes.
At the same time, and for us to, have the emotional intelligence and just understanding that we have of life at this juncture in life. Wasn't by chance. There wasn't a coincidence. And so that's the testimony that we have. And there's a lot more details to it, but that's the testimony that we have to say that even when we're dealing with pain, like the hindsight of looking back and being able to be like, I see what you did there. And I see what you did there. And I see what you did there. And so when you think he's still good, that's where we see it. That's how we can see it.
Absolutely.
Because we've experienced things that didn't feel so fair or didn't feel so good. And now we know that they're helping us in this present moment.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
all right. So you said learning to parent with patience. Oh my. So tell me about this one. Tell me why this is on your top 5.
Because I have been like even with like raising Jay, which is my youngest. He's the youngest boy in the family. He's very high energy, super energetic kid. But sometimes he does test you. You know, so he's growing, so he's testing his limits. I was like, what can I get away with? What can I do that my dad's not going to be probably upset at that? So I'm going to get away with that if I do it. And sometimes I have to let him know, like, look, I'm not one of those parents.
He has phrases.
Yes,
I'm not the 1 or the 2. Try Jesus, don't try me. Look, he's got several.
So I am really trying to be patient with him. And one thing I learned from her, is I think I was actually on the phone with you when this happened. Is at first when he was upset, I'm like, he's dealing with something. He's a boy. I'm gonna let him figure it out. I let them do that when we have another son, Christian, and I let them do that when they're playing outside and they start to bicker at each other. I'm like, they're boys, let them figure it out. She's like, I need to go there and figure out why they're arguing. I'm like, no, they're 7 and 8, they're boys, they're playing. One of them might not have liked losing, let them figure it out. But I've also realized if they're individually sitting there or pouting about something or they don't look right, I try my best to ask what's happening, what's going on. And so having to have that patience to sit him down and say, what's happening? I know you're going through something. It might be about me, but at that time I have to check my ego out. And he might tell me something that I did that upset him. So then I have to let him tell me, Dad, well, you said this or you did this and that upset me. And I have to be like, take a deep breath, and I have to realize, okay, this is not about me. It's not about my ego. I did something that hurt his feelings. So I still have to let him share it. And I just let him speak up. Like, okay, Dad, you said this, or you did this, or I really wanted this and you didn't give it to me. That upset me. I'm like, I understand. But then I also have to process and let him know you don't get everything you want in life, right? Sometimes we're outside. He might say, Dad, could you please get me Wendy's? I'm like, nope, not at the moment because I have food at home that I bought that I'm going to cook. Guess what? That upsets him. He gets quiet. And when we get home, I'm like, what's up? What's wrong? And then he would tell me, but then I have to explain to him, you don't get everything in life you want. It's just, that's how it happens. But I always have to try to be patient with him because there are a lot of things that my dad wasn't very patient about. And so I realized that I have become impatient about the same things that I hate. Like I hated that he was impatient with me about this, but then I'm repeating the same pattern. So I'm learning a lot from being with this amazing woman that she is absolutely ridiculously patient with her son. And sometimes I'm like, boy, if you don't leave her alone, I'm about to wreck your whole world right now. But she's just like, oh, it's okay. And I'm just like, I'm panicking because I'm like, leave her alone. Let her breathe. Let her chill. Let her relax. But then he's like, oh, it's fine. Just everything is fine. That's
And
her.
it's not a passive approach because neither one of us have that. It's not
Right.
what people are calling gentle parenting, which is
Yeah,
really
no.
passive parenting,
Yeah.
because there is gentle
You're
parenting and
definitely not a
gentle
gentle
parenting. Gentle parenting works. I do believe it works, but I think that people are mislabeling passive parenting as gentle parenting, which is a whole nother podcast episode in and of itself. But my approach is much like you were saying earlier, where it's like they can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
People things aren't figure outable unless you have the tools to figure them out.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say everything is figure outable, it's because I've developed and honed in on the tools that make things figure outable. But when you don't have the tools and you don't have the wisdom and you don't have the flexibility to absorb the wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that aren't figure outable because you
Right.
don't know how to figure them out. So when they're children, we try to drop those nuggets on them so that they have them to refer back to, and the
Mm-hmm.
voices in their head they hear when they're in that same position. We also have to train them how to figure out the things that aren't necessarily figure
Absolutely.
outable
Yes.
to them right now. And so when I do that, and when I'm in that space where, they're pining for my attention and driving everyone nuts, it's really just me thinking, okay, I need to care for their emotions while also caring for their lives later in life. And I need to process their discipline while also processing my understanding, because all of those things have to happen in tandem for me to refine my parenting practice,
Mm-hmm.
for you to refine your parenting practice, but also for the kids to learn and do something differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say, now I know that you attribute your patience to me. I would just say that you maybe are starting to see the type of patience that everyone needs. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I want grace, then grace should be given, kind of thing. It's not necessarily because
Yeah.
I did anything. I mean, maybe I showed you something by doing it with my kids, but I don't feel like I was like, here's how you do patience, because Lord knows I don't always have it.
Yeah, which is true, but there are some things I did pick up from like just watching the way that you move, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try to do that to see the outcome I get from my son. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we've
So
talked about that too.
right,
Different kids need different things, and it's
yes,
just it really is
yeah,
a social experiment for
right,
them for several years of their lives to try to figure out
right,
what do they need and how do I, um, refine my practice to give them
right,
that specific thing. Because the way we parented our oldest is
yeah.
certainly not the way that we're parenting
It's
these.
in an episode of a show that I watched called the Rookie, I think. Yeah, it's called The Rookie, where there was I think the sergeant or one of the lead actors playing the sergeant that is training the rookies that come in, and one of them he trained, and he was very like hard on her, like taking her belt, like just constantly pressing on her. And then one of them he was extremely good with, like patient, like nice to. And the one that he was hard on with was like came up to him and was like, "Why are you being so nice to her?" And he said, "You see the niceness in everyone in the world. So I had to teach you that the world can be cruel sometimes." Her, she only sees the cruel in the world. She's still fighting a
Mm-hmm.
war because she was a war back, and she still thinks she's in Afghanistan. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to treat her nice so she knows not everybody in the world is out to get her.
Got it.
So it's like, two same person, two different like outcomes for training two different cops. So, and in that sense, every child, it's not like a one manual. You're like, well, we're on page 5 for you today.
Right.
This is
There's
what you
like a
get.
bucket of ingredients,
Right,
and sometimes you have to put more in
right,
for the kid who might need more of that
more
thing.
absolutely.
So I think your list is done, because being and speaking on what's going on without
Yeah,
fear, we kind of talked about
kind
both
of
of
the
those in the
same
same.
thing. Yes.
So
And yours,
what else do I
you
have?
have one last one that says, "Love is safe," and I definitely should have had this.
Well,
Um,
there's that one too. I
well,
didn't do that
yeah,
one either. So I have
help is
two.
not helplessness.
Okay, so
So what do
I
you?
guess. All right, so help is not helplessness is definitely something I learned being in a relationship with you, because when you're doing a lot of things by yourself, you're just on autopilot. You're like, gotta go to the bus stop, gotta go to work, gotta go wherever. Like, it's just all the gotta
Mhm.
do it. Like, there's no
Yeah.
option for anything else. And sometimes when something isn't on fire and people are trying to help you, when you're in that mode because it's all you've ever been in, you kind of feel like, well, this person thinks I'm helpless because they keep offering me help, or I feel helpless because I have to keep accepting help, or because I am accepting help and not doing everything myself, which is the way that I've always done things, etc. And so people helping you does not mean that they think that you're helpless. And accessing help and allowing people to help you, receiving that help, is not an admission of helplessness.
Right.
It just means that you have really good people in your corner who want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to receive that when you're somebody who has to always do all the things. But it's something that I am learning.
Yes.
That you rob the people in your life the ability to love on you the way that they know how when you don't let them help you.
Yep.
And it's not a negative label that you're wearing because you accepted help.
Yeah.
And it's okay to need help.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like the 3 phases of it. It's like, I don't want to let anybody help me because I can do this all by myself, which is the ego part of it,
Right.
which robs people from the ability to help you. And there's that middle part where it's like, well, if people think that I need help, then they think I'm helpless. And if I accept that label, then I'm admitting to being helpless. Because if I don't do everything on my own, then who actually am I?
Yeah.
And so it's resolving with all those things that none of you're making meaning of something that doesn't have meaning, because the beauty of having people in your corner who love you is that they will help you non-transactionally.
Yes, and that's what I was just about to say. It's a lot of little nuances that fall into that bucket, because sometimes it's also, well, you're trying to help me. What do you want?
Yeah, because you're used to the transactional part.
What do you want?
For sure.
Why are you offering to help me?
For sure. So it's the flexibility of just saying, like, I don't have to make meaning out of this. I can just let somebody help me and love me the way that they deem lovable.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely.
And the last one.
Love is safe.
And you were saying this should have been on yours?
Yeah, because love has definitely been, I've made some pretty horrible choices. I can say, it's I truly believe that the choices I've made in my love life or my dating or even marriage, because I have been previously married, but the choices I made had not always been good, but then also I had never really felt like safe to be like fully in love or love someone until we started dating. And to be honest, it's the compassion that you showed me in even our conversations. Like, I remember I used to say, if God permits us to be.
He's laughing because that used to drive me up a wall. It was like almost like hiding behind like the will of God.
Yeah, like
if it's in God's will, bro, you can't just not answer questions and be like, if it's in God's will. Well, I know that part, but like, what do you think? Well, how are you feeling? If it's in God, if God spares opportunity in life, then yes. And
now I can look back and laugh on it or laugh about it, but I never felt really safe. So when you're definitely in a vulnerable and in a safe space or a place that allows you to be vulnerable and feel safe, it is absolutely the weirdest feeling physically, because sometimes
it's foreign.
It's very foreign to me. So whenever I go to speak on something, at first I had to like calculate in my head, what I'm about to tell her. How is she going to react? How's she going to feel? What's she going to say? I had to calculate.
He was like reading himself his rights. You have the right to remain silent.
Yes.
What you say can and will be used against you.
And that's how you feel in a relationship sometimes. So I feel like that's why a lot of people stay silent. They would rather just stay silent, and you ask them, what's wrong? They're like, nothing. You know something is wrong, but to them, they're like, if I bring this up, this is going to make the situation 10 times worse. So I'd rather stay silent, deal with it emotionally. Tomorrow I'll be fine, and then we'll go back to being happy and laugh about things anymore. But what happens is it didn't go away. You suppressed it. And so 2 weeks from now, something is going to happen, trigger, and that's going to come out even worse than it should have came out if you had discussed it 2 weeks before then. So um, being in this safe love space, I come to her and I'm like, this really got on my nerves today. I was ticked off. This got on
Let
my
me
nerves.
tell you the stupidest thing that
yeah,
happened today.
Yes, and I would
Quotes. Like, oh, here we
yeah.
go.
Yes, that is my line. Let me tell you the stupidest thing I experienced today. And I'll tell her because I know she's gonna be open to listen. And normally she won't say anything. If I talk 30 minutes, I'm talking, and she's just listening. And then when I'm done, yeah,
Oh,
yes,
that sounds frustrating.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's the feedback I get. So it allows me to be able to share everything and feel safe enough to share everything without having to go halfway and like, okay, I can tell her that I can divulge this, but then I'm gonna tell her 70% of it. The other 30% might be tiptoeing the line. I'm telling her 110% of it because she's gonna give me 110%, like that safe feeling and the vulnerable feeling that to be able to not be afraid. And
also safety, I'm going to say something after this too, but like also safety is not letting you be reckless either.
Yes.
So like if you're like, let me tell you the stupidest thing that happened today, and I'm like, well, I see that from another perspective.
Right.
It's not like, you're tripping. Why are you so mad about it?
But it's like everything that you're saying.
Well, maybe we can like have grace for this other person. Right. Is there another way to look at it? Or are you attaching that to something that you experienced from this person in the past? And you could very well not be, but it's just offering like some more insight to try to, I guess, get out of the anger and look at it more from an aerial view, which I think helps us when we do it that way.
Yeah.
Because you do that for me too, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, nah, we're not doing that today. But then other times I'm like, you know what, you're right, I didn't even think about that. So I think that's helpful too.
That's very, very helpful. Ergo, like checking out your ego when that other person is speaking or giving you the answer. Because sometimes you tell someone something or your partner something, and to be honest, a lot of us are not ready for the actual like answer. We're just looking for you to support me. Even if I'm wrong in what I did or what I said, I'm looking for her to be like, yeah, baby, you did that's great. That was awesome. It's good that you did that. But when I tell her something, I have to check out my ego because she's gonna tell me the truth, whether it's wrong or it's right.
Gently, kindly.
Yes, she's gonna be like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have said that, or I would have handled it differently, or you shouldn't have done that this way. I think it could have been handled this way. Back then, I would have been like, she doesn't understand me. I felt attacked, but now I'm just like, okay, I see why you see it that way. And
so we just talk about it. It's not even me telling you to do it a certain way. It's just me being like, have you thought about it from this perspective? And right. If you still land on the, yeah, I'm still doing the thing that I thought I was going to do when I was angry. Yeah, okay, cool. But then also like, sometimes you land on something different because you're like, you're right. Like I didn't think about this part of it. Yeah. But what's interesting to me is that when I wrote that, my brain said, if it's not safe, then it's not love. But when you read it, that's not what you read. You read that, like, an emphasis on the safety part, right? Yes. So, like, love is safe because what you're experiencing now is safe and you believe this to be love, but also what you experienced in the past was love. And you know that it wasn't safe, so the safety was missing there. Yes. Like, when I wrote this, I was thinking, it's not love if it's not safe. So what I've experienced in the past was not the real measure of what love is. But I think that's interesting. That's just a side note. The other part of it is when I'm thinking about how safe love is, that the reason that lesson was learned this year is because I had not been in a place where love was always safe.
Right.
And because I had not experienced that, then was always looking for the other shoe to drop, or, the negative thing that was going to happen, and all of that, because I got the love part right, but the safe wasn't ever
Right.
there. And now I'm learning that no matter what kind of relationship it is, platonic, romantic, familial, however, it's love is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
love is patient, love is
It's
kind. It's
kind,
all
yes.
those things.
Yes.
And when it's not love. I don't even know why the word
Mhm.
true love is a thing.
Yeah.
Because if it's not true love, then it's not love.
Right.
Because love is all of those things.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that if somebody's being rude to you, that they don't necessarily love you. But if they're doing it and it's a habit,
Yes.
then they're not loving to you.
Yes.
And though they may believe they love you, they aren't treating you as if they do. And
Right.
I just feel like in this space, there's no curiosity around that. It's just, this is safe. So I can say, is this a me problem, a you problem, us problem? I can say, why is this triggering me? I can say, well, that really hurt my feelings, but I'm not sure if it's because of me or if it's because of you. And we can just
Yes.
have those conversations where it doesn't feel like it's me against you, but that
Right.
it's us against whatever it is that we're experiencing that's problematic, whether that be something that is our own problem or something that's just circumstantial that's happening
Yes.
outside of it. So really, the bucket that we're putting all of this in is flexibility, because I think both of us have had rigid thinking in certain spaces, whether it be parenting or relationships or, getting help is weakness, and all of these things that we've just had. Yeah, finances.
Everything.
All these things that we've just had like this super rigid thinking around. And I think that when you've had a year like we've had, and you've had all of the kind of bouncing around that's been happening, plus, other extenuating circumstances, you learn how important it is and empowering it is
Right.
to be flexible. Because when something is built to be rigid, the foundation takes so much strain that it easily breaks. But when something is built to be flexible, like the engineering of bridges or stadium seating or whatever it is, it's built for its foundation to sway and bend and take a little bit of pressure and have mobility.
Yes.
But that's what keeps the foundation intact, is
Yes.
its ability to be
Shift
a little
and
bit
change
mobile.
and adapt.
Yeah.
And still be strong.
So I would say this year is like our year of letting go of the rigidity that's in our foundation, and just understanding that flexibility is what makes us be able to be cohesive, but also to be the greatest benefit to the people around us.
Absolutely.
So, final thoughts, sir. Oh, that you have a mic on you, not in my hands. It's fine. Final thoughts.
I think, to sum this up, that I truly believe that there's a lot of growth in my flexibility. There's been a lot of growth mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Also, to throw this out there, if you're a man and you're actually looking for that, says if a man finds a wife, I wouldn't attribute this to anyone else but to God, because she already knew God before I met her. So I wasn't trying to force her or force my Christian lifestyle on her. She already knew God. So I didn't, most of the things that I say I'm learning from her is because she already had a relationship with God, and God was teaching her those things, and she taught it to me as a man. So sometimes, we, as a man, you're like, people say, this is how I am. You know what I mean? I'm this way. You take it or you leave it. Well, if I was to be that kind of man, I would probably not be sitting here next to her, one, and I wouldn't go through the growth, the exponential growth I've gone through mentally, emotionally, physically. I have gone through a lot of changes within the past year and a half because of her. So I would advise you that if you're in a relationship and you're not growing, you're still in that space where you guys are telling each other, well, this is how I am and that's how I am, and you accept me or you leave, um, there's a possible chance that you're not going to make it because there's no growth there. You're not going to grow. And eventually, where there's no growth, the thing will die. It will die. There's no, like, nobody's feeding it anything and it will die. So your relationship will die if you don't have the ability to learn and adapt and grow. So that's my final point.
Yeah, and that flexibility is what continues to keep you at your healthiest, but also to keep the relationships that you're building at their healthiest. And we don't say this, because I know some people will look at this situation and be like, well, you're only this many years in. But we've had decades to unlearn the habits of relationships that we've seen and ones that we've experienced. So it's not just us speaking from a place of the 2 years inside of this relationship, but it's us speaking from the decades inside of those negative relationships and being able to really make that comparison to say, if the yoke is supposed to be equal and you're pulling something that's too heavy for you to bear, that other thing is going to hold you back. And what we know about God to be true is that if something is keeping you from Him, He's either going to move the thing or He's going to move you. So that's just how our God works, and it's what we've seen happen inside of our lives. But it's also another lesson that we've learned just in this season of life, is that He's either moving me forward, He's moving something out of my way, or He's moving me on a new path to get to the thing that He has for me, because staying stagnant is not a part of growing, whether it be spiritually or in our processes.
Yes.
So, hope you enjoyed this episode that is much longer than any of my other episodes.
Absolutely.
But hey, guess what? We had to share and knew we were going to get off on tangents. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And remember, go to the socials, follow there. If this message resonated with you, or even if it didn't, remember that knowledge gained and kept to yourself is self. But knowledge shared with the world may just be the catalyst that they need to break free from the bondage that they're experiencing.
Absolutely.
So be the catalyst today and share this message. I appreciate you, and I thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.